Hello and welcome to Daily Prelims Practice. Here we are going to take up the MCQs which are based on today's news article of The Hindu and Indian Express. The topics for today's discussion are listed on your screen. Let us begin our discussion. The first question of today's discussion is based on this news which featured at page number 7 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the Uniform Civil Code, and the context is that Uttarakhand government has formed a committee to examine the ways for implementation of Uniform Civil Code in the state. Uniform Civil Code comes under the directive principles of state policy. And we all are aware that DPSPs are important and recurring theme in UPSC prelims exam. Hence, this topic becomes important for our discussion. In 2012, UPSC asked about directive principles of state policy, and you are being given 4 statements and you need to identify which of the above are Gandhian principles that are reflected in directive principles of state policy. On the similar lines, we have curated one practice question which says that with reference to directive principles of state policy, consider the following statements. In this question, you need to identify how many of the above are liberal intellectual principles that are reflected in directive principles of state policy. The first statement, to secure all the citizens a uniform civil code throughout the country. It is a correct statement and it comes under Article 44 of Indian Constitution. The second one is to separate the judiciary from executive in the public services of state. It is also a correct one and it comes under Article 50 of the Indian Constitution. Further, the third one says to promote equal justice and to provide free legal aid to the poor. It is an incorrect statement as it is one of the socialist principle which comes under Article 39A of the Indian Constitution. So, it is not a liberal intellectual principle. The fourth one, to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forests and wildlife. It is again a correct statement as it comes under the liberal intellectual principles under Article 48A of Indian Constitution. So, in this question, we have 3 correct statements. So, the answer to this question becomes B, which is only 3. And after discussing the practice MCQ, you will be able to solve the previous year question through elimination method. The first DPSP here says that securing for citizens of India a uniform civil code. As we all know that it is under liberal intellectual principles, so it is an incorrect option. And the moment you eliminate one, you will reach the correct answer, which is B. The next question of today's discussion is based on this news which featured at page number 17 in Indian Express. The context is that the Federal Reserve has kept the interest rates unchanged, but it signaled that the borrowing cost will likely to be increased by the end of the year. And in today's globalized era, any such event related to economy which is happening in one or other part of the world will impact the Indian economy and other economies too. And in this context, UPSC has previously asked many questions. In 2022, this question appeared in UPSC prelims exam and you need to identify the correct statements out of these 3 statements. On the similar lines, we have curated one practice MCQ which says, in which among the following ways does the rate hike by US Federal Reserve impact the Indian economy? And in this question, you need to identify how many of the statements given above is or are correct. The first one here is higher FPI inflows. The increase in the rate of interest by US Federal Reserve leads to higher FPI outflows, which further results in depreciation of Indian economy. If the interest rates are hiked, then it will be more beneficial to invest in United States. Hence, it will lead to the outflow of foreign portfolio investors, which makes the first option incorrect. The second statement is correct. As we have discussed, the foreign portfolio investors will outflow from the economy. Then it will result into the depreciation of Indian economy. And the third one is decrease in bond yields. If the interest rates are increased by US Federal Reserve, it will lower down the demand for government securities in India. And this further results in decrease in government security prices, which eventually increase the bond yield. Hence, it is again an incorrect option. So, the answer to this question becomes A, which is only 1. And the answer to the previous year question is also A, which is 1 and 2 only. Moving on to the next question, which is based on this news, which featured at page number 9 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the ICDS scheme, which focuses on child development. And as per the recent global surveys, it was highlighted that there is high prevalence of stunting and wasting among the Indian children, which makes the government to strengthen the existing schemes such as ICDS. Every year, UPSC asks 1 or 2 questions from government schemes. So, this area becomes important for our discussion. In 2016, UPSC asked about Uday scheme, and you need to identify which of the following is the purpose of this particular scheme. And on the similar lines, we have curated one practice question which says, with reference to the components of ICDS, consider the following statements. The first statement, it aims to address malnutrition, health, and developmental needs of children who are between 0 to 6 years and pregnant and lactating mothers. It is a correct statement. ICDS, which is the Integrated Child Development Scheme, was launched in 1975 to address the issues of malnutrition, health, and developmental needs of specifically 2 sections, children and the women who are pregnant and lactating. The second statement, it is a centrally sponsored scheme administered by Ministry of Women and Child Development. It is a correct statement. As the name suggests, Integrated Child Development Program, there are very high chances that it will be administered by Ministry of Women and Child Development. And the third one is, it focuses on providing supplementary nutrition, immunization, and preschool education to children. It is also a correct statement. The important component of ICDS includes supplementary nutrition, immunization, and preschool education. Hence, the answer to this question becomes C, which is all 3. And the answer to the previous year question is D, because the purpose of Uday scheme is to provide for the financial turnaround and revival of power distribution companies. Moving on to the next question, which is based on this news, which featured at page number 10 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the transgenic crops in India. And the context is that 3 states, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Telangana, have deferred a proposal to test a new kind of transgenic cotton seed that contains this gene. Crops and cropping pattern is an important and recurring theme in UPSC prelims exam. Hence, we need to have a basic idea regarding transgenic crops. In 2014, UPSC asked about the techniques or phenomena which are required to create the transgenic crops. In this question, you are being given 3 options and you need to identify the correct one. On similar lines, we have curated one practice question which says, consider the following statements. The first statement, transgenic crop plants are those which have been genetically modified by introducing genes from another species. It is a correct statement. First of all, you must be aware that transgenic crops are one of the types of genetically modified crops. And these crops refer specifically to the plants that have been genetically engineered by inserting genes from another organism into their genome, which makes the first statement correct. The second statement, the clearance of Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, which is named as GEAC, is mandatory for environmental clearance of transgenic crops in India. It is also a correct statement. The Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee is a statutory body constituted under Environment Protection Act of 1986, and the clearance of GEAC is mandatory for the environmental release of genetically modified crops, including transgenic crops. The answer to this question becomes C, which is both 1 and 2. And the answer to the previous year question is B, which is 2 and 3 only. Moving on to the next question, which is based on this news, which featured at page number 12 in Indian Express. This news talks about the Logistics Performance Index of World Bank, which brought an encouraging news for Indian ports. And India has been moved to 22nd position in the global rankings on international shipments category from 44th position in 2014. World Bank is an important international organization on which UPSC has previously asked many questions. Hence, we need to be aware about each and every aspect of this particular organization. In 2019, UPSC asked that which of the following is not a sub-index of World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index. In this question, you need to identify the correct option. The practice question in this regard says, consider the following statements regarding World Bank. The first statement, it works on the principle of equality with each member having equal voting rights. It is an incorrect statement. The member countries are allocated votes at the time of their membership and subsequently for additional subscriptions to capital. From this particular statement, we get to know that the voting power is proportional to the country's contribution or the size of economy, which makes the statement 1 incorrect. The second statement, the independent evaluation group was established by World Bank to enforce accountability mechanism. It is a correct statement. The World Bank has created an independent evaluation group in 2006 as an accountability mechanism, and it is charged with evaluating the activities of entire World Bank group and to determine what works and what does not work. Hence, the answer to this question becomes B, which is 2 only. And the answer to the previous question is A, which is the maintenance of law and order. The last question of today's discussion is based on this news which featured at page number 17 in Indian Express. The context of this news is that the Executive Director of International Energy Agency has said that India has an opportunity to become a superpower in the production of green hydrogen, and India should capitalize the opportunity as the world makes transition to clean fuels. International Energy Agency is an important organization for UPSC prelims exam. In 2022, a question was asked on multiple organizations such as the Climate Group and the International Energy Agency. In this question, you are being given 5 statements and you need to identify which of the given above are correct. On the similar lines, we have curated one practice MCQ which says, with reference to International Energy Agency, consider the following statements. The first statement, it is an intergovernmental organization established under Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development Framework. It is a correct statement, as International Energy Agency was established in 1974 as an autonomous intergovernmental organization under OECD framework, and it was formed as a response to 1973 oil crisis, and it aims to address the disruptions in global oil supplies. The second statement, a country must be a member of World Bank to become the member of International Energy Agency. It is an incorrect statement. One of the criteria to become a member of International Energy Agency is that a country must be a member of OECD and not the World Bank. The third statement, its headquarters is located at Washington. It is again an incorrect statement because its headquarters is located at Paris and not Washington. So in this question, only statement 1 is correct, and the answer to this question becomes A, which is only 1. And the answer to the previous year question is B, which is 1, 3 and 4.